they could do 6 or 7 surgeries on my back and they gave me a 50-50 chance of whether I'd be more or less pain. And I didn't like those odds. I had just gotten used to walking very carefully so I didn't, make too much noise, or walking slowly when I'm going upstairs because it's so hard to do. Hold on to this as tightly as you can, and don't ever mess up, and you'll be maybe partially okay, but you're going to suffer the whole time.
Welcome. Today we have with us Bruce, who's going to share with us, I guess, a success story of some sorts, I suppose. Bruce, you and I are kind of neighbors. We just found out we're kind of in the same part of the world. We're both in the kind of Seattle area. Tell me a little bit about yourself in general, just kind of your background, and then we can get into your story if you don't mind.
Sure. So my journey started many years ago. I had struggled with my weight my entire life, and also had quite a few health problems that resulted from that. And started doing the Atkins diet years ago, and did lose a bit of weight with that, but it was still quite a struggle. It didn't really leave me satisfied or anything like that. And um, then I kind of got sidetracked with multiple health issues, and stopped doing it for a while. And then back in January of 2024 was when I kind of put all the pieces together about the carnivore diet and started doing that hardcore, and have lost about another 130 pounds, or a total of 230. Now weigh less than half what I used to.
Yeah, I was gonna say you lost more than a person.
Yes.
It's like walking around with another person strapped to your back all the time. And I saw kind of in this, it's helped you cognitively, mentally. Looks like you said you were maybe walking had to use a cane to walk before or something like that.
I did years ago. I was in a lot of pain all of the time due to some back issues, and yeah, I couldn't stand up or even walk without a cane. I had handicap parking and all of that. A doctor told me at that time, after doing an MRI of my back, that they could do 6 or 7 surgeries on my back, and they gave me a 50-50 chance of whether I'd be more or less pain. And I didn't like those odds. So, I kept looking for other solutions, and ultimately, it seems like altering my diet was a huge help with that. I'm nearly pain free and don't need a cane at all anymore.
Yeah, yeah, obviously it's awesome. It's good for you to hear, and it's I see this stuff very commonly. Honestly, it's really wonderful to see. So you were probably, if you've lost 230 plus pounds, you probably would have been pushing 400-ish pounds. Is that fair to say, or somewhere in that neighborhood?
So I was at least 430. That was as high as my scale went. So it may have been a bit more than that, but 430 is what I say.
Yeah, and so you said the limited success with Atkins diet back in the day, and it's not too dissimilar from carnivore. There's a little bit, it's kind of has an introduction phase or an induction phase, and allows a little more items in there, and then you kind of go back into whatever you're maybe not doing before. But why do you think carnivore uniquely has been successful for you? What has been the difference in your view?
So I think it's two things. One has been the increased amount of ketones in my diet. It seems to be helping,
Okay.
like my ADD and other cognitive issues like that. Also, one of the things I completely did not understand in the past was all of the hidden ingredients that are common in things like protein bars that actually spike your blood sugar, like maltodextrin or modified wheat starch. And so I think, eliminating those completely and sticking strictly to an animal-based diet was also a huge help in keeping my blood sugar stable.
Yeah, that's I mean, I think there's a lot of, it's whatever popular diet is out there, whether it's keto, paleo, vegan, South Beach, they always make these processed bars and they stick a label on there, and it's ultimately just turns out to be pure junk usually for the most part, even though it has perhaps the appropriate macronutrients or whatever the thing is. But it's kind of the interesting thing about carnivore, there's not a lot of that. It's really almost impossible to make meat into anything other than meat. You can pack it. And there's some people out there trying to be creative with a few ingredients. You give them 3 ingredients to say, make whatever you can out of these: eggs, dairy, and meat. And they come up with some pretty interesting ideas. I'm always amazed by some of the people's creativity. So it sounds like you said ADHD, so maybe on meds, maybe not.
I was.
Um, so
Certainly.
you're on medications for that. Physicians, how often were they encouraging you? Because if you're morbidly obese, which you were, diet would have at least maybe come up or maybe not. How do they approach that?
It was kind of the standard, oh, you really need to change your eating and start exercising, lose weight. Never really got any specific guidance that was helpful other than telling me that I needed to do better with my weight, to be perfectly honest.
Okay. And were you still remind me? So when you went carnivore, you lost an additional. I think you said 130 pounds. So that's
Yes.
significant. Were you still actively in the care of a healthcare provider somewhere, maybe somewhere in Seattle, Tacoma area?
I do see a naturopath that's in the Seattle area. But I did all of this basically on my own after putting the pieces together from videos from yourself and others that I saw on the internet.
Yeah, probably. I'm guessing it would probably have been helpful if you had a physician that knew all this stuff and could have guided you there in the first place. Would that be a fair statement?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah, I mean that's just a little plug for what we do at Revero. I mean that's literally what we do. We have physicians that get this and help people, and we have a whole team that basically spends every day literally talking to these folks and getting them encouraged and getting them adjusted and all that type of stuff. So, so the naturopath you're seeing, so no standard like allopathic MDs or anything like that. I'm just wondering how they would respond to you losing all this weight and then obviously getting out of pain and just getting your life back. I mean, that's a fair statement. Did any of them, have you reached out to any of them or have you been involved with any of those folks that have seen this?
So I did put that off a bit because I dreaded the discussion about cholesterol when I
Mhm.
did my updated blood tests. But actually, they surprised me when I went in and finally did do a blood test after being on carnivore for about a year and a half.
Mhm.
I told them right off the bat that I'm not going to go on a statin. I'm not going to take any of that medication. Like
Mhm.
I'm eating this diet, and they responded, "Oh well, that's okay. I have several other people doing this." I was like, "Wow, that's great." So we kind of just bypassed the uncomfortable discussion and just kind of moved on. It was nice.
That's encouraging to see. And I'm just wondering, because we're going to get a new set of dietary guidelines for the first time. And since the guidelines came out back in 1980, this is the first time in 45 years that it's going to reflect maybe that meat isn't bad for us type of thing. I think that's going to happen because Bobby Kennedy, who's head of the HSS and oversees the USDA. Well, he doesn't have it. He doesn't oversee us. It's Brooke Rollins. Both of them, I think, are pro meat, and so I think we're going to see a shift in those guidelines. Um, and maybe with some physicians will get on board with this, which would be real nice. Tell me about, you said ADHD. Tell me about that. How did that change?
So I had started having increasing problems with it as I got older, and was officially diagnosed and started taking medication for it, and never quite seemed to find the right combination of meds for it. It seemed like we keep needing to increase it or change to something stronger. I ultimately ended up taking Digoxin, which is methamphetamine. And then I got to the point where pharmacists were saying, "Hey, you're taking too much of this. We don't want to refill it." And I'm like, I don't think that's a great idea. And I kind of forced myself to stop it and just deal with the symptoms. But ultimately, once I switched to carnivore was when I saw quite a bit of reduction in the problems I was having with it. I don't really feel any need to take medication for it anymore.
Yeah, it's surprising when I first started, a decade ago, basically seeing people and the results in carnivore. One of the more common things was improvements in overall mental health, just whether they were cognitively sharper, felt better mood wise, whether it's depression, anxiety, whatever it is, it seems to help significantly. And it's kind of, um, it's very interesting to see that. Um, how about those around you, family, friends, people who observed you at, your heaviest 430 pounds, walking around with a cane with, you know, inability to concentrate to now? Has there been anybody's appreciating the difference besides you?
Well, the my family, the extended family as well, have been very supportive and have been making lots of nice comments when I post my updated pictures and everything. It's been really nice.
Anybody, so I mean, you like you said, you went up to the doctor, said, "Hey, look, I'm eating a bunch of meat and I'm good to go and I'm not going to change." That kind of nipped that in the bud. Like I said, I think it's great that you just laid that out there, because a lot of people feel a need to defend and defer to uh, the physician when it comes to nutrition, when it's very personal. And you've seen what eating the other ways do. I mean, you probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you were at whatever 400 pounds, you probably thought about dieting and changing your diet and probably tried a number of things. Is that fair to say or no?
Oh yes, I've tried basically everything there is, I think, at one point.
Why do you think those other things didn't work? Calorie counting, eating low fat. I'm assuming you did all that stuff. Why do you think those things didn't work for you?
I don't think it worked for me because it never really dealt with the issue of feeling satisfied. It
Mhm.
was, try to hold on to this as tightly as you can and don't ever mess up and you'll be maybe partially okay, but you're going to suffer the whole time, basically.
Yeah, that's, I've seen this among a number of folks that had a lot of weight to lose, that they never could feel like satiety. I mean, I've talked to a gal, 800 pounds. She said she, only when she went carnivore, she found that off switch. She could finally like shut it down to where like, I don't really want this stuff anymore, which is really, I think that is probably a liberating feeling. A lot of people talk about carnivore as, oh, it's a restrictive diet and can't eat this and this, but then at the same time, it frees you from all of that really kind of addictive type behavior. I think that's fair to say. What does your diet look like today? What do you eat these days?
So typically, might have like 5 eggs and some bacon for my midday meal, and then usually have a couple of hamburger patties with some butter or maybe some cheese if I'm being extravagant that day. For the evening meal, I try to stick to 2 meals a day.
Okay. Fair enough. And that's, and I assume you enjoy it. I mean, like I said, I eat the same damn stuff almost every day, but I like it. I kind of remind myself of my dogs. My dog, I feed my dogs meat and they're so happy to eat. They're just jumping around and super excited whenever mealtime is. I feel kind of the same way. I know I'm going to be nourishing myself with some good nutrition, and it tastes good. I think it tastes good as well. It's very satisfying. How about negatives? Let's talk about any negatives you've experienced doing this. Any at all, or has it all been upside? Hey, folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. Hey, if you or someone you love is suffering from chronic disease and you're tired of just managing symptoms with potions, pills, and procedures, I want you to check out Revero.com. Our team of dedicated professionals is committed to tackling the root cause of your issue and finally getting you healthy. Hurry up, though. Our spaces are filling up very quickly.
I mean, really, the only negatives were, and as I'm sure you understand, it's difficult to get started and get out of being a carb addict. I was eating a crazy amount of carbs and just stopped one day and started doing this because I had kind of done it before. I was like, okay, I can do this. So the negative would probably be just getting started. I really haven't had any other downsides to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with the carb addiction aspect of it. Because I talked to a gal last night, and she's been, I've known her for a couple of years now. She's, I think, in her 60s. She's diabetic. Lives up in Canada, and she came in for an update, and she says, well, my A1C last day was 5.2. I've lost 25 pounds for the first time. I feel great. I said, what have you done different? She says, I finally just made the decision that I'm going to go all in, and carbs aren't good for me. Just for whatever reason, personally, the carbs are not good for me, and it's not something that I can deal with. And some people can, and some people can't. And I guess once you discover that, then it's like, okay, this is the reality. And I mean, I think, particularly when people think they couldn't fathom not eating, because I was in the grocery store this morning, bought some eggs. I need some eggs. I bought some eggs, and you're walking around, and there are literally 6,000 products in that grocery store, all of which many of them taste good. Many of them have different flavors and textures. And people say, I can't imagine giving any of that up or all that up or even some of that up. And I mean, the reality is, that isn't the environment we live in today with all that variety is just a novel thing in the context of humanity, even just 100 years ago. I mean, we didn't have all that stuff. We had a fraction of what we have, and people would have to, if you wanted something, you'd have to cook it and make it yourself. And of course, that takes time and work and effort. And now we've just convenienced everything and made it all shelf stable, and essentially wrecked everybody's health with by doing that. Um, do you? So how old are you right now, Bruce? If you don't mind sharing that.
54.
54. Okay, so probably I don't know when you were at your peak weight, 45 or something like that. You're probably your lifespan, health span was not looking too good. I mean, I don't know that there's a lot of 400 plus pound people walking around at 70, 80 years of age. I mean, there's just not. So, I mean, you obviously
Oh.
changed the direction of your life. Is that fair to say?
I certainly think so, yes.
What are you able to do now that you couldn't do back then, or what do you, or even desire to do? Like sometimes like people are like, well, I ran a track meet yesterday, last night. It was an all comers meet, but it was mostly high school kids there. I was the oldest guy. There's one other guy older than me. By far, I was the oldest guy there, and there's nobody else, doing as much as 19, 20-year-old, 18-year-old, 17-year-old kids. And I wouldn't have conceived of that a few years ago. But now I think about that. I'm like, I think I can do this stuff. Are you that way? Or were you like 10 years ago or 5 years ago, whenever you're at your worst, like, I just can't do even anything? And then where are you at now?
Yeah, I think the mental shifts have been some of the biggest. I was so heavy for so many decades that I had just gotten used to walking very carefully, so I didn't make too much noise, or walking slowly when I'm going upstairs because it's so hard to do. It literally just dawned on me one day, hey, I don't need to do that, and I like kind of ran up the stairs. I'm like, oh my god, I can do this again. Or something simple like sitting cross-legged on the floor. I hadn't been able to do that in I don't know how many years, and now I can do it, and it's comfortable again. Um, the biggest thing was trying to unlearn things I had just been doing automatically.
Yeah, that's got to be good. Um, so you're half of what you were. I don't know if you're at a weight where are you pretty happy where you're at right now, weight wise? Are you like, I'm normal weight and pretty good to go?
I'm pretty happy where I am. I do have some notion of wanting to get just below 200 so I can see the one on the scale again. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that I really need or want to stay there, but I'm basically happy where I'm at.
Yeah, good for you. That's a good place to be. So what do you, obviously, and this is my thing, because like I said, when I meet with these Revero patients every week, and we're talking, and you're getting them healthy, getting them off medications, putting their disease in remission. But then I'm like, okay, now what? Now what are you going to do? And I think that's the thing. I mean, do you have any like, I'd like to do this, or goals to plan for things?
So I do want to. I haven't been very good at exercising through this, mostly because I started off not being able to exercise. I do want to start doing that more and build up some muscle, and try to improve my health a bit more that way. Beyond that, I kind of just wanted to maintain where I'm at and enjoy not having to stress so much about what my weight is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good to hear. Um, what other thing have you noticed? Like, a lot of people find that they notice like weird things happen when they change their diet, like things you never were thought to diet were related to diet. Like, I'll share one thing with me. I just never hiccup anymore. I'd never have the hiccups. I'm just like, and I used to, like, once a week we get hiccups or something like that. It would just be like some weird digestive stuff. Any weird stuff like that you've noticed?
One big thing I noticed, I had a rhinoplasty as a teenager, and
Okay.
ever since then had basically permanent nasal congestion and not been able to smell. And I thought it was as a result of that surgery. But after I started doing carnivore again, the congestion went away, and I can smell things again. And it was just like, oh my god, that's amazing that works again. Thought it was broken.
Yeah, that's nice to be able to breathe. What are there any carnivore foods that you shy away from? I didn't, some people like dairy, pork, seafood, eggs, things like that.
So this is a fairly recent thing for me. I was having a lot of intestinal discomfort, and ultimately realized that it was related to having way too much heavy cream in my diet. I think it's probably because of the Carrageenan that they put in it. after eliminating that, I've been okay. And so once in a while, I have a little bit of it now, but kind of had just to accept that I can't have that anymore.
Well, I mean, and certainly the carrageenan is found in a lot of dairy products. I mean, you can get it without, like I said, sometimes I'll go to the store and buy heavy cream, and it doesn't have. It's just it's a little more expensive, unfortunately. It's like you gotta pay extra not to be poisoned. It's like I want less ingredients, but it's going to cost me more. And I think the reason they put that in there was I think it's an emulsifier, so it kind of changes the texture of the product and perhaps helps with shelf stability or something like that. But it's interesting. There was a study recently just came out looking at these emulsifiers, and carrageenan was one of them in Crohn's disease, and it showed that was actually exacerbating that for sure. So I think it does a number on our gut for sure. So, but yeah, a lot of people echo that certain dairy products are a problem, and then cream obviously is pretty calorie dense. A lot of calories in there, and it's easy to overconsume. Dairy, in my view, is a great product for gaining weight if that's your goal. Like if you're a small developing animal and you want to get bigger, dairy's good for that. I mean, you can use it judiciously, and I think do pretty well, but it just depends. Do you find so you said, what have you? This is something that I do see a lot of people when they go carnivore or they fix their health. Their just view about a lot of things change. Have you had a change of opinion on other issues outside of nutrition since this happened?
I would say, I don't tend to get as upset about the things going on around me because I'm more stable with my moods that go along, with the not having the spike of blood sugar so much. I'm kind of able to just, oh well, I don't need to worry about that. It's not affecting me, so it's been a lot less stressful in general, I think.
Yeah, it does seem to allow you to have a little bit more calmness, and because life is always going to throw us curveballs. I mean, there's always going to be unpleasant things. There's always going to be stress, and our ability to deal with that. Let me ask you about that, because stress is a significant contributor to disease in a lot of people. Do you have any ways to de-stress? Like you said before, things would maybe upset you, and now they're kind of. Is it just you just in a naturally de-stressed state, or do you actively do anything else?
So that's been another big change. Before, I didn't really have a way to deal with that, and now I find myself going, you know what, I'm anxious or stressed about this. I'm going to go do some work in the yard, or I'm going to go get some exercise. Like, last week I was having some anxiety about stuff and decided that was the day to unload a full pallet of retaining wall blocks that needed to be moved uphill to position them where my wife wanted them. And it felt so much better. Like I wasn't anxious afterwards. It's like, I got to keep doing this.
So speaking of your wife, has she obviously seen a transformation on you? Obviously, I mean, she's got. I don't know. Like I know, like my wife. Like when I'm a pretty big size guy. I've never been 400. I was 300 at one point. Now I'm about 250 right now. But if I'm too heavy, I'll snore a little bit. Well, actually, quite a lot, and she'll just. And I can't blame her for that, because it drive me crazy somebody snoring next to me. Any changes? Like, is she like noticing any changes? And has it inspired her to do anything differently? Maybe.
So the snoring specifically has been a big one. I used to have really bad sleep apnea. In fact, when I got tested for it, they had to shut the door to my room because I was keeping the other people doing sleep studies awake. It was so bad. That has disappeared entirely, so I don't even need a CPAP machine anymore. Um, my wife did try carnivore for a while, but decided ultimately it really wasn't her cup of tea. Although, with the things I've learned about how bad some ingredients are, like seed oils, she has altered her diet quite a bit and tries to do like a low carb diet. So we tend to eat fairly close to the same things, and then she'll just add in a few more ingredients for her portion.
Yeah, I mean, that's similar to my wife. I mean, she's definitely, and she came from vegetarianism years and years ago to where she is now, which is, about 95% carnivore. Has it benefited her as well? Has she noticed any improvements?
She's definitely been feeling better and has lost a bit of weight, so it's been good all around.
So win across the board. Any kids or anything like that?
I do have stepchildren, and actually, my stepson has also done this and is also losing weight, as well as my wife's brother.
Oh,
So
yeah, it's
it's
good.
been an expanding thing.
It's good to be an example. It's kind of like, people see it in real life and then they kind of get, it's nice when you can see it in person, what's happening there. Um, all right. Now, what do you, I didn't get what you do. What do you do for a living, by the way?
I work in the software industry.
Okay. Has it helped you? Do you feel like you're better at doing that now? Has it helped you in any way with that?
I think so. I feel like I'm more clear-headed and obviously able to focus better now that my ADD symptoms decreased, and just in general, I don't seem to get as stressed out about things anymore. So it's made me, I think, more effective in general.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Anything else that we didn't discuss that you want to add that you think is maybe somebody useful for anybody listening?
I think the one thing I would just add, if you're considering a carnivore diet, definitely give it a try. And in the beginning, don't worry about what the scale says. Just don't let yourself get hungry until you get adapted to it and the cravings go away. Just try to stay on it.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, Bruce, has been very enjoyable chatting with you. Good luck to you, and keep up the great work. And do you have a social media or anything like that that you want to share, or do you stay off of that stuff?
Yes, I'm at Bruce Langworthy on X, where I try to encourage others.
Okay, wonderful. Keep working. There's nothing, like I said, I'm sure this will inspire, many people to at least consider it and give it a try. And, this is the thing. I mean, the only reason so many people are continuing to do this and continue is because it works. And you just get more people saying, hey, this is something you can do, whether short-term, long-term, whatever the case. All right, Bruce, well, have a wonderful rest of your day. I've got to get going. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.